NFL draft is over, so it's time to take a look at the rookie wide receiver class for fantasy value, both redraft and dynasty, based on landing spot. Now, unlike running back, which was just a total nightmare based on what happened there, guys just didn't fall in the right spots, and there's just not a lot of value, honestly, to be had in that class. Wide receiver is different, super deep. A lot of receivers were taken earlier than expected, and then there were, of course, some surprises. Let's start with the first round guys, and Ja'Marr Chase, we knew was going to be the number one receiver off the board. I mean, Cincinnati seems like a dream landing spot, but is it really? Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I'm alone on this island where I don't like this for Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, I get the reasons why people like it. He's reunited with Burrow. Burrow wanted him. Burrow's probably going to force feed him targets. That's all great. But he's got two really good wide receivers to contend with now, right? T. Higgins last year had over 900 yards as a rookie, and that was without Joe Burrow for however many games last season. And Tyler Boyd, entering last year, where he kind of battled with some injuries, had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. So these two guys are really good wide receivers. I get it. He's probably going to have to throw a lot again. I mean, they kind of improved the offensive line, but, they drafted some late guys who maybe could hit but might not hit. Chances are it's going to be another bad offensive line. Defense didn't get significantly better. So I get that he's probably going to have to throw a lot, but at the same time, I just feel like Chase, with T. Higgins already there and Tyler Boyd already there, I don't know if there's enough to go around to make Chase a bona fide stud in year one.
Well, I'm happy to say you are not alone, because I feel the exact same way. This is not the ideal landing spot for Chase. It is for Burrow. It's nice for him, although actually I might prefer that he had some more offensive line help and take a guy like Sewell instead. But look, here's the thing. Everyone's talking about that connection, right? Oh, Burrow and Chase connected. Okay, so what kind of connection do they have? This special connection, this magical LSU connection. So Chase was catching passes from Joe Burrow for what? 1 year, right? This was back in 2019. So they have that connection. Okay, what about T. Higgins? What about Tyler Boyd? What kind of connection do they have with Burrow? They've been catching passes from him for 1 year, and that was actually last year, not 2 years ago. There is no special connection that's more special than what he already has from guys he actually was throwing the ball to in the NFL in the same system. Chase will take time, just like any rookie, to learn the playbook, right? To learn to adapt to NFL coverage. I have Higgins and Boyd both above Chase right now in fantasy, and so Chase isn't going to be as valuable as he would have been if he had gone somewhere else to be the clear-cut number one guy. He's going to start out as the number three guy. Let's just be honest. So I know long-term this is fine. Dynasty, he is still my wide receiver one. In redraft, it makes me less interested. And now we have a different case here with Jaylen Waddle. My Dolphins did take a receiver, no surprise there. Look, I'll just be honest and say I wasn't thrilled with the pick, not because I don't like Waddle personally. I think he's a great prospect. Maybe he should be the number two receiver in this class. But that early, I don't think we needed to go receiver that early. And here's the thing. Now he's competing with Devonta Parker and Will Fuller and Mike Gesicki. So this also seems kind of like a letdown for fantasy purposes.
Oh, definitely. I did not like this landing spot at all. I know he has a role, in the slot because Parker and Fuller are probably going to play from the outside primarily. But at the same time, this is not a pass-heavy offense, right? Like when we talk about Burrow and the Bengals and those three receivers, I mean, Burrow was, throwing the ball 40 plus times a game. Tua was throwing the ball like 20 times a game, right? 25 times a game. That's a lot to ask, for a wide receiver when he's competing against, like you said, two other wide receivers and a tight end. And actually really like they re-signed Shaheen, they drafted Hunter Long. I mean, there's a lot of pass catchers here. So don't love this spot at all for Waddle. I get that, they could move on from Devonta Parker after this year and maybe things will get better for him. But again, don't think this is a smash spot for Waddle at all.
Yep, kind of the same thing with Chase. Not good for redraft, fine for dynasty, but you put it that way. Look, he's going to play the slot. You spent top 10 pick on a slot receiver. That doesn't seem too wise, but also, look, this is not going to be a pass-heavy offense. Like you said, this is a good defensive team. It's a team that wants to control the ball, not turn it over, not have to throw a ton and get into a shootout. And they won't need to, right? The Patriots still aren't what they used to be. The Jets are, until, proven for differently, they're still the Jets. And so this is a team that's just not going to put up a ton of volume. So Waddle, may turn out to be a great player, but for now, in fantasy purposes, you kind of have to knock him down a peg. Now, Devonta Smith, on the other hand, talking about the actual Heisman winning wide receiver, might have landed in the perfect spot. A lot of people, wanted to put somebody like Chase or Waddle there. Well, they got Smith, and that might be what we were looking for because he immediately could be the wide receiver one. Now, here's the question. Is Jalen Hurts going to get the ball to him enough? Because we still don't know what he's going to look like over the course of a full season, assuming that he's even the starting quarterback, which they don't seem to be wanting to guarantee him.
You got to think at this point it's Jalen Hurts. I mean, who else? Joe Flacco. They're going to really roll into the season with Joe Flacco. It's definitely got to be Jalen Hurts. And I love Devonta Smith. I love this landing spot. To me, he's the wide receiver one in rookie drafts, but you won't have to draft him as the wide receiver one. If I had a rookie pick this year, assuming it wasn't super flex, I mean, obviously if it was super flex, I'd want the number one pick so I can just get Trevor Lawrence. But if I was in a non-super flex league, I'd want like pick 6 or 7 or 8 so I can just get Devonta Smith and not have to worry about, reaching on Najee or Chase or anything like that, because this is a guy who had one of the greatest receiving seasons in college football history. And because he's skinny, people were like, he can't cut it in the NFL. I think this is a great spot for him. He's competing with Jalen Reagor and Dallas Goedert, and that's really it for targets. They don't have anybody else to catch passes. Jalen Hurts, the offense got significantly better when Jalen Hurts, was under center last year. Certainly he wasn't great. He wasn't like phenomenal. He can get better, but I still think this is great for Devonta Smith. I think it's great for his fantasy value. He's my number one rookie wide receiver.
All right, well, there you go. So to take, don't dismiss Devonta Smith based on, his weight and his ridiculous numbers that don't really mean much when it comes to, pro production. Now let's look at the most surprising pick, at least for a lot of us, and that was Kadarius Toney. Look, we knew he could be a first rounder, but the Giants taking a receiver first, and a lot of people are laughing at them for that. We're not going to get into the details of who they should have taken, where, why, but okay, Toney and the Giants seems like an odd choice, but also maybe not the best fit because, well, they just got Kenny Golladay. This is not a prolific passing offense to begin with. This is a guy who's going to rely on run after catch ability. How much of that is he really going to be able to do at the next level in this offense? Because you know what? Daniel Jones is still the quarterback.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is still the quarterback, and that offensive line is still one of the worst. It's like they don't even think offensive line matters in the NFL. They're like, let's just get Daniel Jones as many weapons as possible. Who cares if he dies? It's fine. I don't like this at all. I don't like it for Toney. I don't like it for the Giants. I don't even understand. Does Slayton take a back seat now? Does Shepard take a back seat now? What do they do with Evan Ingram? I don't get this at all. Like, what are you just going to run, 5 wide receiver sets every down? I don't understand this at all. I'm not on Kadarius Toney one bit in Dynasty. I mean, maybe if he fell to like the second round, I would go for him, but I don't think he will. I think people are going to, because of his draft capital, he's going to go earlier than that. So not feeling good about him this year or in the future.
Yeah, I definitely am not either. I wasn't super high on him to begin with, but he had to be in the right spot, and this isn't it. Look, okay, so maybe this is a bad comparison, but think of a guy like McCole Hardman, right? Very different circumstance still. But somebody you think, okay, big playmaker, right? He's got the speed, get the ball in his hands, and, he can take it to the house, sure. But how often is that really going to happen? And I think it's going to happen a lot less often than people expect, especially in that offense. So sure, you can get the ball in his hands and hope he breaks one, but every third, fourth game, maybe he'll rip off a big play. And the rest of the time, he's just going to disappoint, right? He'll get a couple catches here and there, but he's not going to be scoring every single game just because he catches a pass. So not a good spot. Look, I think they're just going to have to rely on Daniel Jones getting the ball out of his hands as fast as possible, dumping it off to Barkley, dumping it off to Toney. But that's not the kind of volume that we're looking for a wide receiver in fantasy. And then very disappointed that Rashod Bateman didn't go to a team that really could use him as a focal point of the passing game. He went to a team that's probably going to throw it less than any other team in the NFL. Of course, that's Baltimore. Great for the team, great for Lamar Jackson. Not great for him in fantasy. Probably the most disappointing landing spot for me personally, because I had Bateman potentially as the number one receiver in this class, and now I don't even know if I have any interest in fantasy, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have no interest. They also drafted Tylan Wallace. Don't forget, they signed Sammy Watkins in free agency. They still have Marquise Brown. They still have Mark Andrews. This is a team who threw the least of any other team in the NFL last year. I saw a stat where even if they increased their passing attempts by 8% a game, they'd still be last in the league. They'd still be last. So, a lot of people are saying like, oh, they have weapons for Lamar. They're going to pass the ball more. Look, they're not going to go from a super run-heavy team to a super pass-heavy team. Sure. Will they pass more? Probably. But now maybe they'll be, the 30th ranked passing offense or the 28th ranked passing offense. They're not going to skyrocket into the top 10. That's just not how this team is built. That wouldn't make any sense for this team. Still going to be a low-volume team. Yeah, down on Bateman big time, even lower than Toney, because at least with Toney, Daniel Jones is probably going to have to throw the ball 35 to 40 times. But with Bateman, no interest at all.
Yeah, and the Ravens did the seemingly impossible. They killed the value of two young receivers at once by not just getting Bateman in the first round, but then also Tylan Wallace later, like you mentioned. They'll have their moments, like I said, with Toney, but man, the high hopes that we had for him. Was it too much to ask for the Titans to take Bateman? That would have been the perfect landing spot, but no. All right, so once we get past the first round, we have some guys who we've been talking about this whole preseason. Let's try to figure out what their landing spots mean. Let's start with the Moores, non-brothers, of course. Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore, totally opposite situations here. Rondale Moore going to a prolific offense here, the air raid, with a guy like Kyler Murray at quarterback. Rondale Moore with the Cardinals looks like a good spot. Where will he fit in behind those other receivers is the question. And then Elijah Moore with a rookie quarterback and an offense that was putrid last year and not a lot of competition for targets, though. So who do you have more interest in? The guy who seems to have more opportunity to kind of take over as the top dog there, or the guy who has zero chance to be the top target but is in a better offense?
I have more interest, more interest in Elijah Moore. Not only because I thought he was better coming into the draft, but I do like his spot better. I like what the Jets did. I think they're going to be another offense that really surprises people. Now, there was some talk they were saying, because, he plays the slot like Jamison Crowder, and they're saying, oh, Jamison Crowder is still the guy there, but I don't believe that. I think Elijah Moore will take over sooner rather than later. The problem for Rondale Moore in this offense is I guess he's going to play like the Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella type role, and that's not really a role in this offense, right? These guys, they have their moments here or there, but that's it. This isn't an offense that drops back and just chucks the ball down the field. Plus, don't forget they have AJ Green, whatever he's got left, but you got to think he's going to soak up some targets too. So not really too excited for Rondale Moore. I know everybody loves the offense there, but I just don't think his role is going to fit very well with what they do there. Whereas Elijah Moore, I think, will have a nice role. It might take him a little while. Sure, maybe Crowder starts, but I think by the midpoint, he'll surpass Crowder and he'll have some nice games to finish the season.
And there's talk now that basically they were taking Elijah Moore to replace Crowder. Crowder might not be on the Jets next year because they can save a lot of money by not retaining him. So he's basically a straight up replacement. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, Rondale Moore is just going to be overdrafted everywhere because you think, oh, he's in the Cardinals. Look, DeAndre Hopkins is clearly the number one guy there. Christian Kirk, you have to just kind of ignore at this point because obviously they don't have a lot of faith in him, which is why they took Rondale Moore. But even look what he's done. He wasn't getting very many targets. Once in a while, sure, Rondale Moore will get targeted deep and he'll run some crossing routes and he'll make things happen, but he's not going to get enough targets to really be relevant. And people were going to expect too much, just like we expected too much out of Christian Kirk, to be honest. All right, let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit. A lot of people think opportunity there for him because, well, Detroit just doesn't have a lot going on at wide receiver. Jared Goff, depending on what you think of him, if you think that he's just done, he's not NFL caliber quarterback, which I find kind of be an absurd argument, then maybe you have no interest here. But if you think that he could kind of revive his career in Detroit, maybe you have interest in a guy who could be his top target right away and be the slot receiver in Detroit. What's your take on St. Brown?
It's not a bad landing spot. You got to worry about his draft capital. Like, why did he fall that far? I do think the Lions offense, I'm starting to come around on them because they did a great, Sewell fell to them. They've really bolstered that offensive line. They're rebuilding the right way by rebuilding from the offensive line first. I think Jared Goff's going to have a nice season just because he's not going to be under pressure that much. And, that's where he excels. Even still, the success rate when you get to that, once you get past those first 100 picks, is very low. They got Hawkinson, they got DeAndre Swift. I'm not super excited about him. I'm willing to take a chance on him, but I'm not, holding out hope for a big season or anything.
Yeah, I just don't think he can be a prolific receiver. He doesn't really stand out anyway. He doesn't have blazing speed, doesn't have big size. That's why he's going to fit in the slot. There's just nothing exceptional. He can run routes really well, but that's not something that's going to make him stand out at the pro level quite so much. So I get there's a decent floor here, but, to me, that's just not enough to make me stand up and take notice. And then Green Bay finally took a receiver. It wasn't early on, but Amari Rodgers now catching passes from, maybe from Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. How do you even look at the situation since the whole Aaron Rodgers drama is going on? We thought this might be great for him, but now we have to take a step back and wonder what is going to even happen in Green Bay.
Yeah, you definitely got to wonder about that. And again, like with St. Brown, you got to look at the draft capital. So apparently the Packers, last year they really wanted Justin Jefferson and Brandon Ayuk, and Jefferson went off the board ahead of them, and then San Francisco traded up for Ayuk. I think this year, I forget who it was, but somebody traded up to grab the receiver. I can't remember which one it was. So it wasn't like this is the guy they were targeting. He just kind of fell to them. Obviously, anytime a wide receiver lands in Green Bay, you get excited. But even if Aaron Rodgers is there, is Amari Rodgers better than MVS or Allen Lazard necessarily? Is he just going to come in and clearly step into a number 2 role and dominate the targets, over those guys? Or is it just going to be those 3 guys kind of interchangeably playing? So I think people are getting a little too hyped up about the landing spot. I know there's some concern with Rodgers, but assuming he's there, I think people are getting a little too hyped up about it because I just don't think a guy falls that much, and then goes out in the field and dominates the targets. So again, yeah, I'll take a flyer on him just because of the landing spot, assuming Rodgers doesn't get traded, but not really holding my breath that he's going to have, any monster seasons in his career.
Yeah, we can't get too excited right now. Like you said, this wasn't a high draft pick. If they would have, again, taken a guy like Bateman or somebody like that, I would have been a lot more interested. But even assuming Aaron Rodgers does come back, which I think he will, this is somebody, like you said, didn't put up huge numbers despite being at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. So we're taking a shot here that he can produce. The comp I've heard a lot is Deebo Samuel. Not necessarily that he's going to be Deebo-esque, but that similar style of play, that he's more of a, kind of hovering around the line of scrimmage, run after the catch kind of guy. And that's somebody who could get the job done in the right system, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. So kind of just hovering outside my top 10 rookie wide receivers as of right now. And then one more guy I want to get into is Terrace Marshall, who a lot of people thought could be a top 5 rookie receiver. But this landing spot is, again, not ideal in Carolina. Even regardless of what you think of Sam Darnold, he is for sure going to be behind DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And, Christian McCaffrey for targets. There's just not going to be a lot going around for him to be left over. So assuming there's not a catastrophic injury that propels him to the starting lineup, we can't really have as much interest in Marshall post-draft as we did pre-draft, I don't think.
No, definitely not. He will probably play the slot as well. I think he played the slot at 83% in college. So he'll take that Curtis Samuel role. But like you said, you got Robbie Anderson there. You got DJ Moore there. You got CMC there. And you got Sam Darnold now. So, unless you're a big believer in Sam Darnold, he's got all the weapons now. Sam Darnold has no excuses at this point. I don't want to make this a Sam Darnold rant, but still, like you said, he's going to be at best number 2, if he can leapfrog, maybe Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore, but I don't see that happening. I think he's probably going to be number 3, maybe even number 4, like you said, behind CMC in terms of targets. So, yeah, hard to see a clear path to heavy fantasy relevance here for Marshall as well, which is too bad because I was very high on him before the draft.
Yeah, that seems to be the recurring theme of this year's draft, especially. The players don't always land exactly where we want them as fantasy managers, but man, just so many disappointing spots here this year. All right, guys, that's our rookie wide receiver breakdown post-draft. Of course, check out a running back edition. Also, we're going to talk about quarterbacks and tight ends, cover it all for you, get some instant reaction after the NFL draft. Thanks for watching.